I was very encouraged by the tone of the governor's speech and by the reaction from the chamber, certainly when he mentioned that he would be presenting a balanced budget in the next couple of weeks. So looking forward to that. I think that he brought a powerful message on our economy, where we are today, what we've done, what our history is, and it's a very rich history, and where we can take that going forward, and the changes that will be necessary. Workers' comp rates have been talked about consistently. Lowering those, certainly addressing some of our regulatory processes that other states don't share with Illinois, that has a barrier for jobs here. So very encouraged on that, and certainly the fact that he talked about agriculture and how important that is to the state of Illinois, our #1 industry. Very encouraged.
I'm State Representative Tom Bennett of the 106th District, and this is an update from the Capitol for January 31st, 2018, the first week of the 2018 spring session of the Illinois General Assembly. The House was in session for 2 days this week. We convened briefly on Tuesday to get organized and hold some committee hearings. Wednesday morning, both houses overrode an mandatory veto by the governor of Senate Bill 444, legislation dealing with the implementation of the new school funding formula. Fortunately, an agreement was reached to address the concerns of all sides, and we can now proceed with these important reforms. The main event of the week was Governor Bruce Rauner's State of the State address on Wednesday. Governor Rauner struck an optimistic tone, expressing his belief that Illinois can recover from the bad economic times we have had over the past several years. As he spoke, I found myself wondering what might have happened if we enacted some pro-job reforms 3 years ago instead of being trapped in partisan gridlock for all that time. But even though we've had so many missed opportunities over the past few years, the governor made clear that he still believes we can get Illinois moving in the right direction. There were other elements of the speech which I enjoyed. One of them was the renewed commitment to fighting opiate abuse, and another was the continued support for agricultural education in our schools. I was glad to hear him say that he will be submitting a balanced budget proposal, and I also liked what he had to say about the need for term limits and pension reform. The House will be back in session next Tuesday, and the governor will deliver his annual budget address the following week. Then we'll get down to the hard work of pulling our state out of the tough situation that we've been in for far too long. As we do so, I want to hear from you. Please visit my website at www.repbennett.com to keep up with the latest news from Springfield and to share your thoughts about our state government.
So I was very encouraged to see that the governor took such a positive tone today. He talked a lot about working collaboratively, both sides, in a bipartisan way to move the state forward. I was encouraged also to see that he talked about the fact that regardless of who you are in Illinois, that property taxes are a real problem. He said whether you have clout or prestige, we should all be able to see some property tax relief. We shouldn't have to go and hire a very expensive attorney to have to fight those property tax issues for us. I was glad that he hit on that. One of the other things that he mentioned was the fact that we have some real school funding reform, and we're now going to see students funded not because of their zip code but by their need. And those are all very, very important factors in the speech. In addition to that, I think it was important that he mentioned the need for term limits. We know that there are a lot of folks sitting in this very chamber who have been here much longer probably than they should be here, and we really need to have the opportunity to change that, preferably by ballot option so that the people's voice can be heard on that issue. And the other thing is this, that we turn over to the job creators, the private industry, the ability to grow so that we see more jobs here in the state. So I think the governor took a very positive approach today. I hope that his message was heard loud and clear from both sides of the aisle, and that we're going to move collaboratively in a bipartisan way toward a balanced budget in this next year.
Well, we're here on the floor of the House of Representatives, and we just heard the governor give his remarks, his annual State of the State address, and we were very pleased that the governor struck an optimistic tone in his remarks, the need for continued ethics reforms, things of that nature. He talked about the Legionnaire's disease outbreak and the school funding reform that was such a highlight of his summer last fall, and how we changed funding of schools. But the main text of the governor's body was about creating jobs and the need to continue to push for reforms that are going to create jobs in Illinois, which in turn is going to create revenues. So you talk about workers' comp reform, procurement reforms, property tax reforms, things like that that are going to bring jobs to Illinois. It's part of his agenda. I support that agenda. And he also talked about presenting a balanced budget. He's going to be back in a couple weeks to give his annual budget address, and we're going to have continued cuts. We're going to have to look at different ways of doing more with less. So I look forward to working with the governor's administration and his team, budget team, on getting that budget put together. He is going to be going across Illinois, I think, over the next couple weeks and bringing that message to the people of Illinois as well. But he is committed to bringing Illinois forward, making Illinois competitive again, and a job destination.
I just finished listening to Governor Rauner's State of the State address, and I loved so many of the things that he said about the need that we still have here in Illinois for some work comp reform, some pension reform, some healthcare reform, some better transparency with respect to sexual harassment reporting and investigating. And all these things are really important. My hope for all of us here in the General Assembly and for the state of Illinois is that we actually take action on these items this year. I've been here in the legislature for 3 years, and we do a lot of work on nice to have, and we haven't done any work on essential to have. I'd love to see us work substantively on pension reform and a real balanced budget. That's my hope for the year. I'm going to work just as hard as I possibly can to make those things happen.
Well, I thought the governor gave a really positive message for a change, which is a plus. I know it's a campaign year, an election year, and we've talked about the problems of Illinois for the last 3 years. But those great problems also bring great opportunity. So with some reforms that are on the board and have been discussed for the last 3 years, we actually could turn Illinois into what we want it to be, a place where we're growing jobs, a place where businesses want to invest. We're in a competition with other states for Amazon and other large projects. These are issues that should force us to actually take up reforms and make a difference going forward for the future of Illinois. After all, our goal really is to create more Illinois jobs for Illinois families.
Hey everybody, welcome to the House Chamber. Right behind us, we just had the governor's State of the State address. It was about 20 minutes. I want to harp on 3 points that I've been talking about since I've been elected into office. Number one, talked about we can't spend money we don't have. Shouldn't be doing that. Number two, he talked about pensions. If you want to spend money on some new projects, we have to address the pension crisis. I've been proposing some common sense pension solutions that save the states billions of dollars. It's time to get those done. I have bipartisan support. We need to get that done. And number three, economic growth. The best way to solve the problems in the state of Illinois is to grow through the economy. Everybody knows we've had a net out migration of nearly 1 million people in the last decade and a half. We need to grow jobs. We need to grow wages. And those are 3 simple solutions. I hope we focus on those things. Those are the things I've been focusing on. Thank you.
Well, we heard a very pro-Illinois speech today, which we all need and appreciate. This is the 200th year of our state. And some of the things that the governor touched on are things that I am in full support of. Things like pension reform, things like dealing with our outsized property taxes that are making it harder to live and stay in Illinois. So I'm all on board with those sort of reforms. I think the biggest applause line we heard today was when the governor said we need a balanced budget. And so you saw both sides of the aisle stand up at that. Truly, that is something we need to have happen. We can't let political bickering prevent us from passing a balanced budget so that we're not putting our state at fiscal risk, not putting our non-for-profits, and just the state as a whole will work better if we pass a balanced budget on time. So I'm all for that.
Today, the governor delivered his State of the State address. I'm pleased it was a positive tone, a collaborative tone, looking for bipartisan solutions. I think one of the key areas that I appreciated the focus on was the economy and jobs. That's got to be a critical focus in this next legislative session. How do we make our state more competitive for businesses and for job creators? That's one of the key issues. The other issue that he focused on that I appreciated was his focus on public corruption, sexual harassment, and opportunities for people to speak up. I think people need to be able to speak truth to power. That's so critical. And I hope that the governor and the General Assembly can work collaboratively on policies designed to allow reporting in state government, to allow people to speak up, and allow them, their voice to be heard clear and loudly. And finally, I just note, the governor talked about the opportunities to work together on a balanced budget. That's going to be critical. I look forward to hearing the governor's budget address, but I also, more importantly, look forward to working in a collaborative, bipartisan fashion to pass a balanced budget that's good for the state of Illinois. We have a great state. Now let's make it even better.
So today during the State of the State, I was glad that he started off the speech by talking about the fact that this is our bicentennial. I think a lot of times we hear negative reports about Illinois, and it was good to focus on the good that we've had in our past, all of our challenges that we're facing now, but then how we can harness our victories in the past and really our 200-year really rich history to work together and make the next 200 years even better for the people of the state of Illinois. There's a lot of challenges. He highlighted some bipartisan victories that we've had on school funding reform, criminal justice reform, and then some areas we need to work on in the future. And we've already made strides with the opioid epidemic and other places, but we've got a lot more work to do. So I'm hopeful that this will set the tone of bipartisanship and working together for this session.